Hey Tribe, welcome back. This is the NASW Code of Ethics Breakdown Part 5, and we're going to be breaking down 1.07, Privacy and Confidentiality, so stay tuned. Okay, so jumping into it, social workers should respect clients' right to privacy, period. It just isn't like right there, period. Social workers should not solicit private information from or about clients except for compelling professional reasons. Once private information is shared, standards of confidentiality apply. Okay, what does this mean, right? So, privacy. We want to make sure that our clients have their privacy, absolutely, right? Social workers should not solicit private information from or about clients except for compelling professional reasons. So think about in that space, right? You're sharing with the client. When you're meeting with a client, right? Especially if you're providing therapy services, they're in a vulnerable space and they're sharing very sensitive information, right? Because of this, we want to work with what they're giving us and the questions we're asking. We want to make sure that the questions we're asking are pertaining to helping the client. Let's say you're meeting with a celebrity client. It doesn't have to be a celebrity client, but let's just say you're meeting with a celebrity client, right? And they're a music artist and they're saying something along the lines of, I'm feeling a lot of pressure of having to release an album in time. I'm getting a lot of pressure from the label because of all the stuff going on. And we start to say, what features are going to be on there? Oh, what type of vibe you going for with the album? Notice how those questions don't really have anything to do with what the client's talking about or necessarily helping them achieve their goals necessarily, right? And this is saying once information is shared, even that information, confidentiality applies because small world. How about if we were to get on our social media site or tell someone, oh, I can't wait for so-and-so's album, or, I think it's good that this is happening, more features of this person. And it's like confidentiality pretty much in a nutshell for this one. Don't be nosy. Don't, and again, not even necessarily with a celebrity client. The client doesn't have to be a celebrity, but just getting more and more information that doesn't have anything to necessarily do with what they're talking about or what's going to help them achieve their ultimate goals for seeking out therapy. And when they say for compelling professional reasons, right, there could be a situation where, again, it's not a safety concern. It could be, well, absolutely safety above all, right? But it could be a situation where for compelling professional reasons, compelling meaning there is no misunderstanding, right? Because there's so many different scenarios that could occur. If a scenario would occur where it's like, hey, I feel comfortable appearing in front of a board or whoever and saying the reason why this occurred, I got this additional information and everything was for insert compelling professional reason here. And they're like, yeah, that makes sense. That really is a compelling professional reason. Then we're good. But if it's nothing like that, we just want to be mindful of that. B, social workers may disclose confidential information when appropriate with valid consent from a client or a person legally authorized to consent on behalf of a client. So again, confidentiality applies. We need, the right legal consent to be able to speak to that individual or that entity on the client's behalf. So we can't just talk to them just because, even if the client says it's okay, like, oh yeah, that's my mom, that's my spouse, that's whoever. We still want to, proceed, get that, legal consent, that document, have them sign off saying that it gives us, the social worker professional, the ability to be able to contact that person, that entity on their behalf. See? Social workers should protect the confidentiality of all information obtained in the course of professional service, except for compelling professional reasons. The general exception that social workers will keep information confidential does not apply when disclosure is necessary to prevent serious, foreseeable, and imminent harm to a client or others. In all instances, social workers should disclose the least amount of confidential information necessary to achieve the desired purpose. Only information that is directly relevant to the purpose of which the disclosure is made should be revealed. So essentially, safety above all, both safety for the client's safety and to the broader society. Like if a client say, oh, I'm going to hurt my boss or something like that, and is foreseeable, imminent threat, dangerous, again, to themselves or others, different, right? And it's also saying, even if it is a situation like that, or we're obligated to turn over documents because it's coming from a court or a judge, we want to see, well, if it's coming from a court judge, we're going to advocate to see if, we can only give the judge what they actually need. We're not just going to turn over everything. And if the judge says we need everything, then we got to give over everything. But we want to advocate for as least amount of information to be turned over as possible. And even when it is a safety concern, we're not going to tell them the entire backstory, like if we're speaking with law enforcement or whatever case may be. Oh, here's the entire backstory of this person, right? The client. We just want to give them the information that they need so that they can address the safety concern appropriately. We're not going to, again, tell them like their whole history type of thing. D, if social workers plan to disclose confidential information, they should, when feasible and to the extent possible, inform clients about the disclosure and the potential consequences prior to disclosing the information. This applies whether social workers disclose confidential information on the basis of a legal requirement or client consent. So again, to the legal extent possible, right? If a judge says like, hey, I don't want you informing the client or anything like that, so the judge, court ordered, they're contacting us, the social worker, and they're saying, hey, I want this client's records. And of course, we want to advocate to say, like, do you really need the records? And they're like, no, we really need the records. I want all their records, and, don't inform the client. Then legally we can't, right? But if we are able to inform the client, like, hey, we've been contacted by the judge to provide your records, and they want all of your records because when we tried to advocate, they said no, we want all the records type of thing, then we would want to be able to speak with the client. And also, this applies whether social workers disclose confidential information on the basis of a legal requirement or client consent. Even with client consent, we want to inform them that when feasible and to the extent possible, inform clients about the disclosure and the potential consequences of disclosing information. So saying like, hey, once this information is out there, like if a client gives us consent, once this information is out there, it's out there type of thing. And depending on who's it going to, right? They go like, oh, that's fine. Like if it's going to a caseworker or something that, we need to be in contact with, they go like, oh, that's fine. But even if it's coming from a judge and, they're demanding it and we are able to contact the client in this case, in this scenario, we want to let them know like, more eyes are going to be on your files, essentially, because it's going to the court and more eyes are going to be on your file type of thing. E, social workers should disclose with clients and other interested parties the nature of confidentiality and limitations of clients' right to confidentiality. Social workers should review with clients circumstances where confidentiality information may be requested and where disclosure of confidential information may be legally required. This discussion should occur as soon as possible in the social worker client relationship and as needed throughout the course of the relationship. So honestly, before services are even, occurring, right? This is confidentiality, the limits of confidentiality, meaning, if, confidentiality won't necessarily apply when it's for safety concerns, imminent danger to your self, somebody else, legal requirements like it's being court ordered coming from a judge for the legal documentation and everything, right? So those are some of the limits of confidentiality. Again, safety above all, and those legal requirements if we're getting contacted by a judge for the documents of a client that we're seeing. So those are the limits we want to be able to make sure that they're aware of. And then again, as needed, honestly, throughout the course of providing services to them in case something comes up where it really is apparent of like, okay, here's the limitations to it. This is what we can do, etc. F, when social workers provide counseling services to families, couples, or groups, social workers should seek agreement among the parties involved concerning each individual's right to confidentiality and obligation to preserve the confidentiality of information shared by others. This agreement should include consideration of whether confidential information may be exchanged in person or electronically among clients or with others outside of formal counseling sessions. Social workers should inform participants in family, couples, or group counseling that social workers cannot guarantee that all participants will honor such agreements. So during situations where, like they were saying, there's multiple people hearing your information, as the social work professional, we're obligated to maintain confidentiality, right? We're not going to be going out, telling your business online or in person or anything like that, right? But the other people in the room, whether it's a spouse, a group member, whoever, they're not obligated to the same confidentiality that we are. Now, we definitely want to kind of say like, hey, everyone, we're here for, this reason, this benefit. We want to make sure this is a safe space. We want to exercise confidentiality and not, put our business online and stuff like that, or in person. Again, it could be a small world. And if you guys do decide to, talk about some of the things that have been talked about in this space right here, we just want to be able to, make sure it's clear amongst all parties and everything like that. But just letting them know, because that other people are involved hearing this sensitive information, although we promote it, right, we can't guarantee that this person and that person will maintain confidentiality. We definitely promote it, but we can't guarantee, because they're not obligated to the same standards and requirements and everything that we are as the social work professional. G, social workers should inform clients involved in family, couples, marital, or group counseling of the social worker's employers and agency's policy concerning the social worker's disclosure of confidential information among the parties involved in the counseling. So if you're in an agency, let's say you're at an outpatient facility, you're working with a psychiatrist, a nurse, other therapists, right? There's going to be more people involved in that client's care, is what I'm saying. And just kind of letting them know like, hey, multiple people are going to be involved in your care, because let's say, you're at an agency, an organization, and just making sure that they're aware of all these things. H, social workers should not disclose confidential information to third-party payers unless the clients have authorized such disclosure. So typically when they refer to third-party payers, they're talking about insurance companies, right? So let's say, a client comes in, they're seeking services, right? And again, before any services or anything like that begin, we give them the paperwork to sign. Like, we go over everything, give them the paperwork to sign, like the HIPAA and all that other stuff, right? And if they plan on using their insurance, we also inform them that, essentially other eyes are going to be on your information. And they have the right to say, no, I don't want to use my insurance because I don't want other, eyeballs on my sensitive information and everything like that. Well, then their insurance company, whatever insurance provider they have, they won't pay for it. And this could get really expensive. So more times than not, the client will say, yes, I sign off for my insurance, the insurance company, to be able to look at my information and get updates and things of that nature, because since the insurance company is paying for it, they're paying for it, and they're saying like that's one of the requirements for us to pay for it, is to be able to do the check-in and be able to see. So for example, at an outpatient facility I used to work at, let's say a client's coming in for whatever reasons they're coming in for, right? And they're authorized a certain amount of days. Once those days are up, we need to seek authorization for the client for more days if more days are needed. And that involves speaking with their insurance company and pretty much giving them an update of how things have been going. It's like, oh yeah, we need X amount more days. This is the progress they made thus far, right? Because the insurance company is not going to keep paying because they want updates and everything like that, right? So if, again, the client said, no, I don't want anyone involved, the insurance company is just not going to pay for it. But more times than not, clients typically do say like, yeah, the insurance company can be involved. Social workers should not discuss confidential information electronically or in person in any setting unless privacy can be ensured. Social workers should not discuss confidential information in public or semi-public areas such as hallways, waiting rooms, elevators, and restaurants. So essentially, do it within a professional setting, within a professional space like the office, or if you're providing services via telehealth or online, make sure like there's no people around and it's a safe space, right? We're not providing services, doing therapy and talking about sensitive information in hallways, restaurants, and things of that nature. J, social workers should protect the confidentiality of clients during legal proceedings to the extent permitted by the law. So again, clients' best interest at heart. We want to always keep that in mind, to the extent permitted by the law. So even going back to when the judge, if a judge is requesting a client's records, we want to advocate for them essentially not to turn over the records. And if we have to turn over the records, can we advocate? We will advocate for the least amount of information be turned over as possible. And if the judge says cool, then great. But if they say nope, I want everything, then we would have to hand over everything. When a court of law or other legally authorized body orders social workers to disclose confidential or privileged information without a client's consent, and such disclosure could cause harm to the client, social workers should request that the court withdraw the order or limit the order as narrowly as possible, so the least amount possible, or maintain the records under seal, unavailable for public inspection. So again, this is really speaking to advocating where if it's going to go down type of thing, we want to advocate for the client of like, can we not? And then the judge says, yeah, we want to. Can we narrowly as possible? And they say, no. Like, well, could it still like be under seal and stuff like that? And the judge could say, okay, to one of those things, right? But if they say, nope, I want it all, we're not doing any of that, then we would have to, we're legally required to turn over that information. Quick side note, if a subpoena is coming from a lawyer or another entity that's not a court or judge, and when it's court ordered, judges give the court order, then we can enact privilege where we don't have to turn over that information, and we will want to discuss it with the client, because sometimes they may say like, oh yeah, that's fine, you can give them my records for that or whatever the case may be. But again, if it's coming from a judge court order, we're legally required. We will want to advocate on the client's behalf to the judge to say like, hey, do we have to turn over this information at all? And if they say yeah, narrow it as much as possible, and saying could it remain under seal and everything. And if they agree with it, cool. And if the judge doesn't agree with it, then we would have to again turn it over. Okay. Social workers should protect the confidentiality of clients when responding to requests from members of the media. So again, in all aspects, it doesn't matter if it's media, anywhere, any and everywhere, clients' best interest at heart. We want to protect them as much as possible, including who they are. If we're working with celebrity clients, right, people that's more like visible, more out there, we don't want to drop hints or talk to media or any of that. Confidentiality, clients' best interest at heart above all. L, social workers should protect the confidentiality of clients' written electronic records and other sensitive information. Social workers should take reasonable steps to ensure that clients' records are stored in a secure location and the client's records are not available to others who are not authorized to have access. So whatever form, right, documents, right, whether they're written or documented electronically, have like firewalls and everything. And there's a bunch of systems like you guys see right here. I have a Simple Practice up here. That's electronic healthcare record system that I use. It's safe, encrypted, all of that. We just want to make sure that people who don't have access to it don't have access to it, type of thing. M, social workers should take reasonable steps to protect the confidentiality of electronic communications, including information provided to clients or third parties. Social workers should use applicable safeguards such as encryptions, firewalls, and passwords when using electronic communications such as email, online posts, online chat sessions, mobile communications, and text messages. So again, do your absolute best to make sure that it's confidential, it's safe. People that shouldn't have access to it don't have access to it, and we want to make it hard as possible as far as like, again, encryptions, firewalls, passwords, all that great stuff. N, social workers should develop and disclose policies and procedures for notifying clients of any breach of confidential information in a timely manner. So let's say if, things happen, right? Their information is breached or potentially breached because let's say, some entity hacked into the system. We will want to let the clients know in an appropriate time frame of like, hey, this issue occurred. Your information was either viewed or possibly viewed, but just want to kind of let you know because again, it's their information. We don't want to keep them. We want to keep them in the loop. We don't want to just hide this from them or anything like that. O, In the event of unauthorized access to client records or information, including any unauthorized access to the social worker's electronic communication or storage systems, social workers should inform clients of such disclosures consistent with applicable laws and professional standards. So again, wherever you're located, I'm in New Jersey, whether you're in New York, Arizona, Atlanta, wherever you're at, we always want to adhere to the laws, the regulations, the standards, everything within that area that we're in. P, social workers should develop and inform clients about their policies consistent with prevailing social work ethical standards on the use of electronic technology, including internet-based search engines to gather information about clients. So again, just kind of keeping the clients updated about, what they're getting into as far as the services we provide, our policies, everything. And this usually, again, happens at the start of services. Even before they're actually starting, we're just kind of giving them an update of like everything, all the confidentiality, all the limits to it, the policies, the limitation, like everything. Q, social workers should avoid searching or gathering client information electronically unless there are compelling professional reasons and when appropriate with the client's informed consent. So, hey, should we be doing Google searches of the clients? No. Again, we talk about like their privacy and everything. We're already meeting with them and they're sharing very vulnerable, sensitive information. We're not doing like background checks on them or anything like that. Like, oh, they have a YouTube channel. Let me just look it up. Oh, cool. Just to check it out type of thing. We want them to maintain their confidentiality and their privacy, right? We don't want to break that and do kind of like our own like searches of them. Again, if it's a compelling meaning, yep, this is pretty clear. Most people would agree type of thing. Unless they're a compelling professional reason, different. But if it's just out of our own curiosity or interest or something like that, then we want to avoid that. R, social workers should avoid posting any identifying or confidential information about clients on professional websites or other forms of social media. Again, like, let's not put our clients' business out there, because even though we're not necessarily using their name, they know their story. And let's say if we put essentially a client's entire history or a situation up and it's in detail and everything like that, yeah, we may have not used their name, but if a client, again, small world, right? A client happened to come by it somehow and, it's posted on a certain form or whatever, and the client sees that, they're going to feel some type of way about that. And we don't want to client's best interest at heart. We don't want to do that to a client or anyone for that matter. So avoid that. S, social workers should transfer or dispose of clients' records in a manner that protects clients' confidentiality and is consistent with applicable laws governing records and social work licensure. So when we're disposing or transferring records, legal requirements, right? What state are you located in? Do they have specific laws on how to transfer records or dispose of records? And this also goes along with, how long should you keep a client's records for? Refer to state guidelines, refer to your jurisdiction, because it's going to be different if you're in LA, New Jersey, Illinois, right? It's always going to be different, but we want to make sure that we're doing it in an appropriate manner, not just, let's say if it was written records, not just throwing them in a recycling bin type of thing. T, social workers should take reasonable precautions to protect client confidentiality in the event of the social worker's termination of practice, incapacitation, or death. So if unfortunate things happen, we want to have a plan for the clients that we're seeing, right? Again, we don't want this stuff to happen, but what is the plan if this were to happen? If we're part of an agency, they usually have policies and plans and everything like that. And if we're a private practice, we're by ourselves, we want to have a plan where the client somehow was updated about what's going on and what's going to proceed from there and everything like that. So this is just saying prepare for the worst type of thing, so the clients can still have be updated and have benefit in some way, shape, or form. Social workers should not disclose identifying information when discussing clients for teaching or training purposes unless the client has consented to disclosure of confidential information. Again, if we get consent, cool. We need consent from the client, and if we get it, cool. If we don't, Be very mindful. Yes, we can say, oh, it's for teaching purposes and everything like that, but rule of thumb, when in doubt, generalize it out. We don't have to use super specific identifying details, right? Like we could say like a client with depression. We don't have to say a client with depression with X, Y, and Z going on, where it's like, okay, now it's like very identifying because we're telling like their story. And again, you never know, small world type of thing. So when in doubt, generalize it out. V, social workers should not disclose identifying information when discussing clients with consultants unless the client has consented to disclosure of confidential information or there's a compelling need for such disclosure. Again, compelling is like very clear, very right. And when it says social workers should not disclose identifying information, identifying, meaning using their name, that's identifying. And again, being mindful of using the super specific details of a client and their experience, what they went through. Like when in doubt, generalize it out. We can get what we need out of the consultation without giving the super identifying details of essentially telling all the details of their story and whatnot. And W, social workers should protect the confidentiality of deceased clients consistent with the proceeding standards. So again, wherever those proceeding standards are, just because a client unfortunately, passed, we're not going to say like, okay, their records, anyone can have them and stuff like that. We want to definitely consult with like state laws and everything like that. If we're part of an agency, absolutely, like their policies and everything on how they handle it. And also we want to be mindful of saying like, okay, just because this is a family member, like, oh, can I get my client's record? Like, no, like we want to see what releases are on filed and how to proceed accordingly and everything, and not just say, okay, here's all the information. Okay, tribe, that was it for today's video. That was 1.07, privacy and confidentiality. Hope you guys enjoyed. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, share with a social work friend, because again, we don't want to be licensed by ourselves, and you got this. Okay, tribe, I'll see you next video. Bye.